It was a sweet throw too. There was like a picture of me hitting a rock bottom basically. Like I picked the guy up and then I turned and I just slammed him. I was just like, wham!
And I didn't realize Kyle was up. And you hear, oh, Wiz like elbows me. He's like, dude, did you see that? Like Kyle just threw him on his head. And I was like, what? I'm like, I had like an outer body experience. I'm like, Kyle's there, like I'm here, like how I came to France, like I did the one thing, and it was just, yeah, it was not.
It's a crazy to think about what your mind can do to your body. Like, this stress that you would put on yourself, what impact that has on your physiology. The way you move is going to stress you out in some way or another. I know I have a really strong mind and I'm going to will myself to do this. Going out and finding the best possible teachers, the best possible healers to like help me on this path. Like I need to get back and do the best things I can. It wasn't always easy. But what really cool about it is that Greg was there to film it all, so it's just like seeing the process of like, how do you become the best human? How do you become the best version of yourself all the time?
Kyle was wrestling in 4 hours, and I was in Kazakhstan, and I wasn't allowed in the arena. So I was like, okay, breathe. Let's try to figure this out. And then I was emailing a bunch of people, and then it obviously worked out.
There's always going to be trials and tribulation. And like you were talking about before, is like everything is the best possible thing that could have happened. That was something my mom always told me. And that's what I think is really cool, that Greg was able to capture all of those moments.
I knew when I was there and when I was filming, I'm like, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to really show this to the world. I need to be able to capture this in the best way that I can. I know I'll be made whole eventually, and that will work. It does take a toll on you after a while.
What is your mental state 7 days, 6 days, 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day out, day of, 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after? What is all this? And I think there's just a lot of value in what we have. I think that a lot of people can learn from it, whether it's you're CEO of a major company or a mom and pop shop, or you're a plumber or you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever. Like you can learn a lot from this film. It's not just a wrestling film at this point. It's not just something that only wrestlers can enjoy. Greg would get on my nerves sometimes so bad, and it would be captured on film. Like I would just like have to like swallow it, and it was just like if you get filmed, are you acting differently? And there's times when I would try to act differently, but then it would just like bubble up because I'd be so tired. I'm like, Greg, get out of my face. Like I am going to just throw you off this balcony right now.
I'm really, really grateful, of how all of this went down, and I cannot wait to share this with the wrestling world.
And welcome back to Wrestling Mindset. We are super excited about the Dake documentary. At long last, we've been waiting for a very long time. But we got the two men who made it happen. Greg, Kyle, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Gene.
Absolutely. So let's take it from the top. What inspired this? I mean, obviously we know who inspired it, but when did this project kick off?
Yeah, so basically, I graduated college in 2010, and then I was just looking on Facebook one day, and there was a Facebook group that was being made about Adam Fry. So they were trying to make a movie about him, and I think it was before any sort of fan pages or anything really even existed. Someone just made a group being like, we're making a movie about Adam Fry, his incredible story, his battle with cancer, unfortunately. And so I reached out to the group. Adam used to come down to Long Beach every summer and do the beach wrestling over in Long Beach. And I reached out to the group at the time, and I was like, hey, like, I knew Adam a little bit personally. I'd love to be a part of the film. If there's any way I could do that, just please let me know. So the guy, the group or whatever, responded back and just told me, yeah, we're still working on the script, but we actually just finished doing we were just up at Cornell doing like a tour, and there's this kid named Kyle Dake who's about to go for his fourth national title, and if he wins, he'll be arguably considered the greatest college wrestler of all time. And I was like, man, I'm like, that name sounds so familiar. I'm like, is he like a little blonde kid from Ithaca? And he's like, well, he's blonde
Not
and he's
little.
from Ithaca, but he's not little. And I'm like, I think I was on the national wrestling team with him in high school. And we were. I mean, there was like, he was a cadet and I was a junior. And I was like, yeah, I remember him, but he's definitely a lot bigger. So basically, long story short, I did one little web series before then. And he was like, well, I'm in California. And I'm like, well, I'm in New York City. I'm like, I think it's only 4 hours away. So that's basically how the film started. And when I went up there, he got me like a motel room for like the day. So it would kind of go back and forth. And I was like, they lived in like a wrestling house. So it was like literally the entire team in this massive house. And I was like, is there any way I
Terrible idea, by the way.
could that was a great idea.
It was a terrible idea to have us all in one house. I wanted
Um
to kill everybody in my house.
it was fun though. It's
And
really
who was in that house, for the record?
25 Cornell wrestlers.
Any
Plus Greg.
any notable names?
Oh
Probably
yeah,
all of
Steve
them.
Bozak, Cam Simes, yeah, everyone, literally everybody. Mike Nevinger was in there, like all the All-Americans. Nashon was there. Everybody was there.
Bill Longo was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody that started, pretty much everybody that wasn't a freshman, moved into that house.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And it was one kitchen, terrible. One kitchen, couldn't have any food. Everyone had to have their own mini fridge. Anyway, that's a side note. That'll be in the film probably. That'll be the bulk of the film. Would just be like that one year of existence, so that it's all about us being a frat house for a year.
yeah. And then so I asked him, like, is there any way I could maybe stay in the house? And so I guess the guy asked Rob or whoever, and like, well, every room's taken. And I remember being at the house, and there was on like the top floor, there was the way like the house was designed. There was like a hallway that was like cut out a little bit, and I'm like, I could definitely put a mattress there for sure. I could definitely put a mattress there. And then I asked, and they were like, you want to sleep in the hallway? And I was like, yeah, I mean. I kind of have to like I'm gonna miss those moments if I'm not there. So I lived in their house for the entire season, pretty much. And I was doing round trips. I was going up at the time I was like just bartending. So I was doing like 2 days a week working, and then I was going up and filming the documentary. And I put a lot of miles on my car. I was driving home one time and my tire completely ripped off my car. So I think it was Steve. Was it Steve Bozak? I think Steve Bozak. No, not Steve. Who's his brother?
Oh come on.
Oh, oh my God. He was such a.
Anyway,
Anyway, he came and drove 45 minutes.
actually,
He came and drove and picked me up. My tire ripped off my car.
Scotty.
Scott.
Scotty.
Yeah, Scott Bozak. Yeah. So shout out to Scott. He was great. So picked me. I mean, there was just so much that was going on, but I was allowed to stay in the hallway and basically make this film. And at the time, I never made a film before. Like I never no.
This is
Like
your first one.
yes, technically, because the producer asked me, he was like, "Hey, what have you done before?" And I was like, "Well, I directed this," and I showed him a web series that I did. I said I directed it, but I never shot it. But he didn't ask me more questions, so I was just like, I'm not
Leave it.
I'm gotta leave it. So I was learning how to make a film while I was making the film, and then I was sitting on my little cot, like rewatching the footage and going through the audio and like, okay, does this work? Does this sound good? And yeah. So that was essentially the start of the film. And it was supposed to be the end of the film, right? It was supposed to be just Kyle's fourth year. Obviously he won. And then unfortunately they sat on the project for 8 months. They didn't do anything. So he won. It was great. We were like, okay, like let's get into post-production. They unfortunately didn't have any money for post, so he just sat on it, sat on it for 8 months. And then I started editing it on my own. I transcribed every single interview by hand because there was no AI.
No AI, right?
There was nothing. I had to watch all the interviews, go through all the time code, and sit there and pause it, type it.
Cool.
Old school. So I had like a stack of just papers so I could do a paper edit first of the interviews. And I was just learning myself. I was just learning. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to learn how to make a documentary. So fast forward 8 months, and they essentially still had nothing. So I cut this film together because I was like, I want this film to come out. I'm like, this is such a cool film to, obviously it was filmed the way it was filmed. It was my first time making a movie, but I'm like, his story was great. It was able to capture all these really interesting, intimate moments. I'm around Kyle's age. I'm only, 3 years older, 4 years older. So being with those guys, it wasn't like, someone who was super young or super older in the house. Like I did wrestle. So I was, in a way, I kind of blended in kind of. So it just worked out to where they treated me just like another wrestler in the house. So you were able to capture all those different fun moments. So let's say, so then while after 2013 ended and they sat on it for 8 months, I knew I was missing like interviews, bits and pieces here and there. So I would go up during 2014. A lot of that time, Kyle was injured, so I was able to get all these additional interviews. Finally put the film out in 2015, and thought, it was good. It was a good film for what it was. But then Kyle was going to try to qualify for the Olympics in 2016. So I was like, well, maybe there's like a longer version of this film. Obviously, it made it to the finals, super close to make it to the Olympic team. And like in that moment, I'm like, oh, also, by the way, I mean, I don't even know if I should say it. I didn't even apply for a credential then. I just like showed up at the trial. I didn't know,
It's like a don't ask for permission, beg forgiveness kind of thing. I get it.
but I didn't even know how to do that. I just like walked there and like, well, I think I got, maybe it was a photo credential or something. USA Wrestling has, and Gary has been amazing over there, and I got to know him throughout the years and did it the right way. But yeah, and then people were like, well, how did you get that footage? I was like, I didn't know I wasn't able to get the footage. Like I just
Shoot
showed
a
up.
green light.
I just showed up on that side. So like pretty much that day, I was like, okay, there's a longer version here. There's a longer version of Kyle's story that I want to tell. And then we were kind of off to the races. And at the time, no one funded the movie. It was me. I was, charging credit cards and working everything that I could do from working on set. I do like on-set props on TV shows and movies, and take that money and I would just put it into the movie. So
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, like in 2013, like I won and I was on like this high and I was like going to appearances and clinics and the ESPYs and like just doing it all. And then but Greg was just living with me, so I didn't really know like to tell him like, "Hey, I'm going to do this, you should come. Hey, I'm going to do this, you should come." And it was just like I would go do something. He goes, "Dude, why didn't you tell me?" I was like, yeah, that's my bad. I don't know. I just assumed you're always there. You're like this little fly on the wall all the time." And then I started coaching. So, and Greg was, like you said, coming up and back, and it was kind of cool to have him around, and just getting interviews. So it's just like I was used to seeing him all the time, all the time, all the time. And then I got injured at the end of 2013. So in 2013, I had a foot thing happen. My Liz Frank popped off. I thought it was just a sprain, so I was in a boot for 6 weeks. I just got an X-ray. I didn't get any other imaging done, and then so Greg was just like, all right, well, you'll be back. Like, it'll be kind of cool. You get to go, try to make the team and, like start your freestyle career. And then come to find out I needed, after I needed surgery. So I needed to go somewhere to get surgery. I got it in town, in Ithaca, and they found out that I had a heart condition. It was called Wolff Parkinson's White. And I was like, uh-oh. They're like, hey, this is kind of serious. Like, there's like a 1% chance that you go into cardiac arrest, like at any given moment. I'm like, well, I don't want that. But I also don't want to get heart surgery. Like, I don't want them to, and, like, well, it's just an ablation. So basically it'll go up into through your groin and then get up in your heart, and then they'll just like map it out and make it go away. And they were really confident that it was going to be a simple procedure. They're like, it'll probably take 2 hours. Ended up taking 6 hours. The worst part of that surgery was my shoulders, just being so tired. Like my traps are still sore from that surgery, I think. But then I had another surgery. So that's out for a long, long time. So Greg would, come up and see how I was doing. And I was kind of coaching. I was in a boot at NCAAs that next year in 2014, and was itching to get back on the mat. Like I really want to get back on the mat. And I started wrestling really well again. And then the end of 2014, I was wrestling at the OTC, getting ready to go to the Urigan, and got thrown by a Greco guy. And we were supposed to be just hand fighting, no throws, just like hard hand fight, hard hand fight, hard hand fight. And then he went to throw me. And I like pulled my elbow out, and like my hand got stuck, and he threw me and just boom. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to the Uri again. And then found out that I fractured my scapula and like tore a bunch of ligaments in my shoulder, in my rotator cuff, and then my labrum was all jacked up too. So that was a hard one to deal with. But it was like, well, 2015 is like a super important year. Let's just heal up, see how you feel, because you want to qualify the weight. If you qualify the weight for the Olympics, like you're feeling really good going into the trials.
Mindset Monday is brought to you by our official sponsors, Eat Clean, bro. Make sure you order today, get them delivered right to your house, check them out, and make sure you put in your discount code MINDSET.
And so I was just like on a bum shoulder, just trying to get back and do my best in 2015, and ended up losing. And then, just kept training, And Greg was just like, man, just like all these trials, like these things that were going on, it's going to make for a cool story. Like we should just continue to do, what we're going to do. And I mean, it's only one more year. Like who cares? I'm already this far. Like I should just keep going. And, um, and that's kind of just been like the motto, like, all right, we're already this far. Might as well keep going. That's how it turned into a 12-year film. But yeah, it was kind of crazy that just the sequence of events that had happened in 2013, 14, 15, and then also 16, like just the way that the trials process is set up, and maybe it's not the best way, is that if you win a medal, you get to sit out. Like I was on both sides of the coin. I was on the side where, you got to sit out, and then also where you didn't get to sit out. And that was just like, that was just the way it has been. And the reason behind it, I guess, made sense. Back in the 2000, like 4, 8, 12 era, there were guys who were like, hey, we're training to be world champions, and we have guys in the States who are just training to beat us. Like we're not getting a fair shake here. Like if we medal, if we're proven performer, we should be able to sit out. And they changed the process, which everyone knows about, instead of it being, you wrestle 3 or 4 matches in the morning, you get to wrestle the next day. But that didn't change until 2020. So in 2016, I was like, man, Jordan just won. And 86 kilos, like the guy didn't win. And that is just like a huge advantage, to be able to sit out, and if someone doesn't sit out, at least we're on a, even playing field. And it was just, I got so close. I mean, obviously Jaden's a 2-time world champion, multiple time medalist, like,
That was nuts.
in the beginning of his career. And it was night before weigh-ins too. And I weighed like 177 pounds trying to wrestle 86 kilos. And I was like, dude, what is going on? I go out there and I look and I'm standing next to this guy, and Megan, my wife, was just like, are you really about to wrestle Jane Cox? Like he is ginormous. Even Richard Perry was so big, and he hit me in the head so hard in our match. Like he was just clubbing me and just like trying to just rattle me. And I just remember being like, dude, I am wrestling a beast right now. And like, I gotta figure something out. And that match was like, that it ended up being, I think it was like 9-8 or 10-8 or something like that. And I had to come from behind. And there was like a kind of a controversial situation where it was like, I was on the line out of bounds. And I ended up scoring a chest wrap, but they challenged it and lost the challenge. So they were saying I was out of bounds, but the camera angle is like, you can't see if I'm out of bounds or in bounds really. But then you could see like photos of people, whatever. So I was probably out of bounds. So I probably should not have been that. It probably should have been like 9-2 at that point, but then it ended up being 7-5. So I was like, all right, I'm in this. And then it was just like crazy exchange. Anyway, those guys are ginormous, back then.
And darn near almost beat the Olympic bronze medalist by a push out when being undersized.
I know. I had his leg in the air. And I mean, Jaden is just such an incredible athlete that, when you have his leg in the air, that's like almost half the battle. You got to be able to put him on the ground. And I went for a push out. And that was at the time when they had like this continuation rule where you could kind of run him across the mat. I remember one time I was wrestling David, and I think it was in Wisconsin, and I ran him literally to like 2 mats away to score my 4-pointer. And they gave it to me. And I was just like, oh, this is sweet. Like continuation rule rocks. Like I'm going to keep doing this. And then, yeah, so, but yeah, I mean, I wish I would have won, but I don't really have any regrets about that, just because, it is what it is, and, got me where I am today. So, yeah, so that was just like a crazy time frame for Greg to like come up. And during that time, he was like getting better cameras, he was getting better microphones, he was understanding like different shots and things like that. So he was just like learning along the way. So you can kind of see in the film, like you can see like the early production and like the quality of camera that we had, like that anybody had. And then 12 years later, you see, the footage that we have now is remarkable relative to what it was like. So it's at the same time, it's a story about me. It's also kind of a story about Greg and becoming this filmmaker, and producer and director, and just like learning on the fly. Like, hey, look what you can do just by, YouTube, figuring it out. Like, I'm just going to figure it out. And that's what he did. He's just like, I'm going to spend all my time, all my money, all my energy, and just figure this out. And it's a testament to him too. It's kind of, it's kind of a dual story for both of us. And I think that's something pretty special that I don't think many people would look into, like I don't think anybody that would put money behind a film would be like, all right, well, we're just gonna learn along the way. We're gonna take this guy who's never used a camera before, essentially, but has been in front of the camera and like, let's do it. And so just a very unique situation, and obviously he's gotten a lot better. So it's pretty cool to see like the product now.
The man made sacrifices. I mean, you guys are probably literally stepping over him in the hallway to get to the bathroom and gym bags hitting him. So, it completely sounds like a one of a kind documentary. Almost like when you look at like scientific studies, you have most experiments, then you have like longitudinal studies. You don't see documentaries this long ever. And I mean, especially for a guy like Kyle to be able to do this and how he won it and when he won it. I mean, there's so much that goes through my mind with that. Even just thinking about that Jaden Cox match, just a guy who really, obviously, we talk about mindset, but the will to win. And like, a guy like Cox, I know this is just one example, but just represents like how Kyle is in his mindset that, Jaden Cox, it's almost impossible to get to this guy's leg. And you just know in your head there's 10 seconds. Like, Kyle's going to somehow find a way because his will to win is so she's going to find a way to either get to this guy's leg or get extremely close to scoring, which is what he did, which you really can't say that for pretty much anyone. I mean, there's guys out there, but it's few and far between. The other thing I think about those injuries, while the wheels are turning in my head, either one of those could have ended a guy's career. There's guys who just don't come back from an injury. Some guys come back better than ever, few and far between. A lot of them, it just ends their career, and then you don't hear the rest about them. And there's not multiple time world champ and thinking about this, I don't know if what year, so the 2013, was that when you spoke at the National Coaches Convention? This is my one like cameo into the story.
I don't really know. I don't remember the year exactly. I think I was injured there. I think that was like the coaches convention. I wasn't really able to like show much technique or talk like really do
You were
anything.
well. This is my one interjection of me personally into the story of all this, where I saw you in the elevator, and I said, "Hey, how's the ankle feeling?" And you said you're getting better and better every day. And I said, "Yeah, whatever happens to you, you have to believe it's the best thing for you." And then you went on and you said that to there, and then also Win Magazine, and you said that just captured how you always thought. But more importantly than me here with all this is that is your mindset. And like we try to train that into guys where, hey, whatever happens to you, you have to believe it's the best thing for you. It's easy to roll off the tongue, but it's another thing to actually live that like you did. So again, coming back from the injury, the dramatic matches that you've had with really legends in the sport. And there's Greg filming the whole time, like, and the man making unbelievable sacrifices. My main point is just it's a one of a kind. Go ahead, you guys take back over here.
Yeah, it was interesting because, like I was saying, like the cameras were getting better. I had to sort of update my cameras. Just learning a bit more. There was just different, YouTube videos that I was watching. I would play, for example, let's say I kind of would take it in sections. So like, okay, the trials would be like one section, and then I would watch all the footage and go through and maybe do like a rough assemble. And out of, let's say, I cut it down to 20 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, I'm like, okay, I like about 90 seconds of this. Like, for the next time, how do I replicate that and double it? Right? Like, okay, this camera angle was good. I like this. I like the way this shot was. Um, how could I tell a mini story within that and then attach it on to the next piece and then make a mini story and then attach it onto that. So it's like each scene is like an individual story of what has happened throughout the film. So it's like, and then what's interesting is like I've just obviously I'm so involved in the film. It's just me and Kyle the entire time. So it's like you can't help but just be so. I mean, there's been so many world championships where like I'm literally like my hands like this, and I had to literally just rest it on the mat because I'm like the camera. It just like magnifies it, and I'm like, all right, just don't calm down, just like focus. And then people would always say like, dude, you have the best seats. Like you're literally like no one has it except literally the coach. Like you must be able to watch. I was like, no, I can't. I'm literally looking at like a 3-inch by 3-inch screen. And I've tried for a moment to take my eye off to like just see if I can enjoy like just look at, and I can't because then the camera is like here. So I'm like, if you want to experience it, film the best thing that you possibly can because like that's what it is. And I wanted to make a movie that if I couldn't be the best wrestler, I want to make a film that everyone could look at and be like, if you want to know about the sport of wrestling and what it takes to understand a man's psychology and everything else, this is the one film you need to watch. And that was my bar. That's what I wanted to do and set it at and say, okay, like I'm gonna try to get better. And it's cool because Kyle motivated me too at the end of the day, like just his determination and will of how he's gotten over injuries, continue to go after Jordan year after year, eventually make the world and Olympic team, different training methods. It was inspiring. And then I'm like, okay, like I could be a better filmmaker. I could, you know, try to capture this in a really cinematic way where I haven't seen wrestling. We'd watch movies and TV shows and stuff, and I'm like, how do I take that look and feel and apply that to a documentary or just the style and the feel of that? Where a lot of the stuff at the time, I mean, there was no vloggers, there was no, every wrestler now has a camera guy or a camera crew. And back then it wasn't, I mean, I really can't name any person who was following a wrestler. Maybe it would be like an intern. They would give a camera, for the wrestling team, and they would just capture film just so they could watch it back for their own personal stuff. Flo had video then, but it was shot on like a potato camera. Like if I had $1 for every pixel, you would have 50 cents. Like the cameras were not good. And so it's like, you know, essentially making that and doing that with Kyle was something that, like, I didn't even know it was gonna be this long. Nobody knew. But like you said, Gene, it was like, a lot of those times I've seen guys come and go when people would start like maybe mini documentaries on guys, and they would get hurt and retire, or just wouldn't, or their career would kind of peter out. So it just ebbed and flowed with Kyle to where I'm like, okay, there's more here. There's more here. There's more,
Yeah, coming back to like that mindset stuff that you were alluding to is just like in 2016, I was like, man, I think there's a chance I'm done, like um I need like something has to change, and I need to figure this out. Like, why am I getting injured all the time? Why am I not able to perform the way I want to perform? Because and I feel like probably a lot of wrestlers experience this, like they'll come into the room and like a couple days they'll be like, man, I am unstoppable. Like it doesn't matter who I'm wrestling. I could be wrestling, you know, Mihan Lopez or Kale Sanderson or John Smith, and I am gonna whoop their butt. Like there is nothing that is gonna stop me. And you're like, okay, how do I replicate this out on the mat? And some of that is that mindset stuff. So like keep the main thing is what Coach K always talks about. And just focus on what you're doing. So um when guys go out there, it's probably a mindset shift. And it's a crazy to think about what your mind can do to your body, like this stress that you would put on yourself, and what impact that has on your physiology. And also too, like just the way you move is going to stress you out, like in some way or another. Like your body, if your body has a bunch of tension and you're over rotated one way, or anything like that, like it has an impact. And it not only does it have an impact on your body, but it also has an impact on your psychology. So the more balanced you are in your body, the more in harmony you are with your body, the more in harmony you can be with your mindset, your psychology. So I think it's pretty cool that how intertwined those things are, and how we can, for me, it was like, okay, well, I know I have a really strong mind and I'm going to will myself to do this. But at the same time, I need to be really intelligent about this. Like I need to do it the best possible way. So, going out and finding the best possible teachers, the best possible healers to like help me on this path. Like I need to get back and do the best things I can. So, I found, one of my college buddies, his wife was studying to become a chiropractor, and her mom was great. So I went and talked to her, and like I've used them. I used them all the way through the Olympics, and that was like a super long journey. And then on the other end, I was like, all right, well, what do I do with my training? Like, the wrestling side, like I just know wrestling, so I'm just going to wrestle. But what do I do? And I saw these like Facebook videos of this guy, and he was just like making a lot of sense. Like he was just like, you're a human first, so move like a human would first. And I was just like, all right, well, he's making a lot of sense. Let me go like learn from this guy. So I was just like messaging him and like trying to slide into his DMs. And eventually, after me being pretty persistent, I got to go out and train. His name's Naudi Aguilar. He was out in Seattle. He's with Functional Patterns, and there's a bunch of guys that do it now. um and it was just like, this is what I need to do. This is how I'm going to take that next jump forward. So I like stopped with all the heavy lifting and started just trying, like I wanted to connect my body so that it was working together, and because you hear these cool stories of like moms being able to like lift a car off their child, and it's like, well,
How did that
how
happen?
do we tap into that? Yeah, like how do we tap into that? I can't just like think myself into there. But there's something about it that's truthful. And I was like, all right, well, let's try to understand the fascia. Let's try to understand like everything about it. And it was really like a crash course in like trying to understand how the human body works. And oh, it's always adapting. So if you go back, 10 years and look at what functional pattern was versus what it was 5 years ago. And I mean, every year they're changing and like adopting and making adjustments and figuring things out. And really it's like that's a concept um that Coach Kale talks about a lot too, is like I think it's like limitless beta. So basically you're just always in beta, trying to develop and learn and get better. And um so that's the same, it's the same mindset that I have, is like, how can I get better? What priorities am I making? And in doing so, you know, what does that look like? What does that look like for me? And having to filter through like all this information. Like I had some really good teachers to help me filter through it. And it wasn't always easy. But what really cool about it is that Greg was there to film it all. So it's just like seeing the process of like, how do you become the best human? How do you become the best version of yourself all the time? And how do you, whether it be something that I've talked about for a long time is like your priority filter, or what is that growth mindset? What is your abundant mindset? What is like all of these things coming together into um, basically into a masterpiece? And there's always going to be trials and tribulations, and like you were talking about before, is like everything is the best possible thing that could have happened. That was something my mom always told me. Um, and that's what I think is really cool, that Greg was able to capture all of those moments. So that's why it's a unique film. That's why it's something special, that nobody has ever tried before. And to be able to follow someone like me, is pretty special too, because I think a lot of elite level athletes would, you know, we just have a part of us has big egos, and we're just like, dude, get out of my face. Like, you're not doing a great enough job. Like, get away. And it was just like trust in Greg that he was going to put the best product out there, and whatever it was going to be. So let's make it happen, and continue down the path.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to say, "Hey, be the total package, spirit, mind, and body." Again, it's lip service is easy. It rolls right off the tongue, right? Have a scientific approach, but still, you see guys compartmentalizing, just putting out fires, making short-term decisions that are just like acute decisions, and not seeing how it all plays into the totality, and not understanding that reciprocal interaction, which is huge. And then to actually see that, I mean, I think of Tim Ferriss's books where he's like the human experiment. He tries, he's always thinking about the most economical way of doing things, the most efficient way of doing things. Minimal input for maximal output. Not that you're and it's not that you're slacking off. It's not training minimally, not training maximally, training optimally. And then to see that, that's why when I saw that you did that, we're looking at these different things at Jack Cruz. I went down that rabbit hole. I interviewed him. I interviewed Nowdy, because I don't just watch these documentaries. I study them. I contacted Nadej. I'm trying to get her on a show. So I'm saying, what are all these cool things that you're doing? And the fact that now you have Greg who puts it all together. One question I have. So Kyle, did you agree to this right away? How did Greg approach you? Like, hey, I'm going to be your shadow for the next indefinitely. Like, that's a tough thing.
Yeah. No, it was Coach Cole brought me in. It's like, hey, we got this guy. He wants to come. He wants to like fund this film. Um, and I was like, oh, okay, like cool. Like he's like, we're gonna follow you around all year. Um, and it's just going to be epic. Like it's going to be this great thing for corner wrestling, for your future, and for your kids and grandkids are going to watch this, and it's just going to be, he really is a good salesman. So he sold me out. I was like, all right, cool, sounds good. And then Greg shows up, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like he's just like at our, in the beginning there's probably a shot of it, but like in the beginning we had like, a joke of the day. So we'd sit outside the locker room, and I remember from somebody else's angle, like I think maybe Flow Wrestling was there, or somebody was there, and there was Greg on the other side, and Greg was filming. So it was kind of like the Spider-Man meme, like you're filming, kind of like that.
Oh, it was Riccio.
Oh, okay, so it's Jeff Ricky. Okay, got it. So yeah, so it was just interesting that that's how it happened. And then it was just like, okay, let's keep it rolling. He's like, hey, I want to, you're going to the World Team Trials. Like, this is pretty cool. Like, I'd like to be there. And, I think it would be something that would be nice for me to film. And I was like, all right, sounds good. Like, whatever you think. And, so just waiting for the film to come out, thinking that it was just going to be a 1-year project. And then it kind of just kept happening. And it was just like, Greg kind of became a part of the family, and it was just like, hey, what's Greg doing? Like, is he coming up, or, is he going on this trip with us? Like, does he want to come to dinner? He's like, oh no, I got to edit. I got to do this. I got to go get some B-roll. I need to go, whatever. So yeah, it just like turned into this thing. It just morphed into like this project that wasn't really just like two individuals anymore. It was just like we were together. It was just like, let's go. So it's kind of cool that way.
It was interesting because, once Kyle really started to go on the international circuit, it was a really big learning curve for me, because before that, I was just dealing with people from the United States, right? Or I knew like Rob would be able to put me in contact, or would kind of figure out the lay of the land. But as soon as Kyle started wrestling for, UWW tournaments and stuff like that, I didn't know who to talk to. No one explained anything to me. I didn't understand how I can get credentials, what I need, obviously, from the Olympic team trials. I just show up. And all these things. I mean, there was a moment um, that I was in Kazakhstan, and I was standing outside the arena because I was initially told that I had a credential. And when I showed up, they were like, no, you don't. I didn't even have so Kyle was wrestling in 4 hours, and I was in Kazakhstan, and I wasn't allowed in the arena. So I was like, okay, breathe. Like, let's try to figure this out. And then I was emailing a bunch of people, and then it obviously worked out. But it was tough. And then, initially UWW and the guys over there, they're great, but they were a little skeptical. They were like, what are you doing? And like, why? It's just, you're doing what? And I'm like, it's not coming out. Like, don't worry, I'm not going to post the footage. Like, it's just, I'm making a film about Kyle.
What year was this again? I'm sorry.
2018,
Okay, go ahead.
2019. Yeah. So it was tough to sort of like gain their approval and have them understand what I was trying to do. So, and then as the years went on, it went from me standing outside, the arena, not having credentials 4 hours before, to them calling me and being like, hey, let's do a walkthrough to see where you want to go film
Nice.
before we open. So it was like a full 360 of like them understanding and seeing my stuff and doing that. But it was, I think at that point, when Kyle probably started working with Nowdy, and making those transitions into like understanding like mind, body, soul, all those things connected, that it was initially just a wrestling film. But I think it slowly morphed into something way, way deeper than that. So and once again, it just sort of happened organically. It's not like you can't force it, right? You can't make something that it's not. So I just was really fortunate that Kyle's trajectory happened that way. And I was just there essentially to be able to capture everything. And it's like, how could I make it look really beautiful? Like, when you watch it, how could I make it something that like,
the time is now to take your mindset to the next level with Wrestling Mindset. Make sure you go to our website, wrestlingmindset.com, and sign up for your free trial session today. Don't wait any longer. You want the mental edge right now. When you sign up for the free trial session, you're also going to get a copy of our free ebook, Building the Predator Mindset. This book has helped thousands of people build confidence, relax under pressure, get motivated, and build mental toughness in wrestling, school, and life. Make sure you sign up for your free trial session today.
no one has seen wrestling like this before, and then told a story like that before. So
Oh, and let me toot your horn for a second there. Like I said about Kyle, knowing that he's a guy who's going to be able to get to that leg. You just kind of know that about Kyle. I'm going to toot your horn there, Greg, about how after hearing what you've gone through from 2013 to 2018, and you're outside and you don't have the credential, I'm banking on a guy like Greg and his savviness and his scrappiness to be able to find a way to get into that arena. So when you said you got in there, that's not very surprising. And then at the point where they're escorting you around, they're catering to you. So I mean that's a testament to the sacrifice, the effort, and everything that you put into that, because that's not easy.
no, and that's the thing too. It's like no one funded it. So it's like I was working, and then I was taking the money that I had, and I mean I was maxing out credit. I mean, I would not advise to do that at all. It's stressful, but I knew when I was there and when I was filming, I'm like, this is where I need to be. Like this is what I need to really show this to the world. I need to be able to capture this in the best way that I can. And I'm like, I know I'll be made whole eventually, and that will work. Um, but it does take a toll on you after a while, like trying to do that day after day, or when and seeing what you have, and not having the funds to do that. So it's like but I'm like, I know what I need to get. I know I need to capture this. And it's like I know I will make it back one way or another somehow. But I'm like, definitely need to go to this. I definitely need to be able to film this. And then I would sit there and try to map out. And it's interesting because initially, sorry to jump back and forth, I didn't know really how to interview people at all. I initially in 2013 when I was interviewing Kyle, I set it up in the weight room and I made it look dramatic, and I was in it, and it was okay. And then it was totally fine. And Kyle did good and it was fine. And then I was sitting in the wrestling house and just in his room, and we were talking, and he opened up so much more. Like it was just me and him that were having a conversation. I'm like, okay, from now on, no more interviews in spaces, essentially like where people are. If we're gonna have a conversation that has some depth, like that's where I know that he's most comfortable talking to me in. And then you just sort of learn from there. And then when he's cutting weight, the more the kilo by kilo that he loses, the further I get away. He bites, so it's like you have to be careful of that. And but what I realized, I would mic up the coaches. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get further away from him, but when I mic up a coach and the coach talks to him, I'll pick up that same audio, and I'll obviously have my zoom lens. So it's like I don't have to be in his face, and it's not necessary. So I had to learn a lot of these different things on the fly, uh, to be able to capture this stuff. I'm like, okay. And I mean, I was even experimenting with like how, when you watch like Hard Knocks and you see and their, helmets are mic'd up and you hear them hit, and like, I'm like, how do I capture that audio with someone wearing a singlet? Like, how do you, and they don't wear headgear. So like, how do you do that? So I'm like, what microphone could I use? Like so I was always trying to experiment, always trying to see like, make it, how could I capture something that nobody's really seen before in terms of the sport of wrestling? Yeah.
How do we sew a mic into a piece on the singlet or into your shoe or sock? Like, how can we get some of that? And I remember you trying to sew one into a singlet, and I was just like, dude, this is not gonna work. Like, this is such a bad idea.
I bought this Russian spy mic that was it was the tiniest little mic, and we like took a few singlets and cut it and see if I could and I'm like, all right, but if someone grabs it or hits it, like it might fall out. I don't like, we were just testing it in practice of like, okay, like and then how does it sound? Okay, then taking it out, how long does it last for? Like
Yeah.
all these different things I was constantly trying to experiment with to see like how we can capture. So
I
it's
was like, get away from me. Stop doing this stuff. This is stupid. Don't do this.
Yeah.
But it's just funny, just telling the story and like being able to relive it a little bit is pretty cool. And so then obviously we're, working to get post-production going. And after I don't remember the exact timing, but Rob Cole and the alumni at Cornell did a great job. They were able to help us raise some funds so that we could start getting um an editor in. So we have an editor that we've used, and he's like, I don't think I've ever met Ian, but he probably knows more about me than just about everybody in my life, just from listening to all the footage that Greg has. And a lot of it too is just like me talking, so it's like mindset and stuff. So it's like what is your mental state, 7 days, 6 days, 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, one day out, day of, 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after, what is all this? And I think there's just a lot of value in what we have. So I think that a lot of people can learn from it, whether it's you're a CEO of a major company or a mom and pop shop, or you're a plumber, or you're a stay-at-home mom, or your kid wants to be the best, ballet dancer ever, or whatever. Like, you can learn a lot from this film. It's not just a wrestling film at this point. It's not just something um that only wrestlers can enjoy. It's something that and really for me, and I really do enjoy this is just being a filter. So like, how can I filter through information that is out there and come to a useful conclusion? Like,
Right.
there's so much out there, like so much stuff. And I've made mistakes before for sure. And tried things that didn't work and, probably did something to, that wasn't beneficial. But I'll take that hit, I'll take that punch for somebody, and just like try to filter out the good information and the good teachers and the people who know how to do certain things. And so I think that's why it's really cool for us at least, to get it out there for me. It's like, hey, like these are all the things that he tried. These are the things that really worked. These are the things that didn't really work. And um, it's just something that nobody. I feel like I'm still kind of on the front. I'm forward facing a lot of the time in terms of like new information. Like, okay, well, I've gone through all these things. Does this really work? Is this new way of training, this new tech, this new whatever, really the best way? And testing it. I do a lot of testing on my own body, my own self, and how can I make improvements? So, but yeah, anyway, so I think it's just something bigger than that. I think it's something bigger than a wrestling movie. And we're at the point now where we're trying to wrap it up. It's a cool story, and I think that there's a lot of legs in it. I think that it could be something really special. Ideally we're looking for a home for it, where there's a few things that we might be able to do, and a lot of it's just like wrestling world. What kind of connections do we have? Like, who can come forward and introduce us to the right people who see the value in what it is. They don't just see another wrestling movie and this obscure sport that only a handful of people do. It's like, oh, this is something different than that. So yeah, we're launching our campaign on Monday, and our goal is to raise 215,000. So and we have 60 days to do it. And we just are going to do our best. And I think it's something that will be great for the wrestling world. Wrestling right now is so, like, the week after the NCAAs is usually dead. But for whatever reason, the NCAAs this year just went off, and we've just been, everyone's talking about wrestling right now, from people who never talk about wrestling ever, don't know anything about it, and they're talking about it. So it's kind of cool to see that, and kind of just continue on that trajectory for the sport of wrestling. I think it's something that we would like to help along, at the same time.
Oh yeah, and I mean, man, the wheels really get spinning when you guys start talking. Like you said, it's meant for everyone because success leaves clues. And if you're an intelligent person, you're going to learn from any successful person in any field. Um, Aristotle's classic work, The Organon, which means the method, is basically how he outlines thinking and logic. And one of the things that he said in one of his 5 books, The Organon, is that fundamentally all problem solving in any field happens by this in the same exact way across all fields. And like you said, it's people don't really understand that, where there's so much information out there. Now you have to find what theory makes sense. Okay, so that means you have to look at all these different theories. Then you have to take out the ones that don't fit. Then you have to bring the ones that do fit, bring them together. Then it's the application. Then after the application, it's communicating that application to other people. And anytime you have those different steps, there could be a breakdown. There's the potential for a breakdown. And the whole time you got Greg here filming this whole process. So it really does make this unbelievable. One of the things that was popping in my head that I really wanted to make sure I asked you guys was talk about how that affected you guys personally in terms of at first and you guys alluded to it before. You start off, hey, here's the guys that you're doing the documentary on Kyle. But then you made the comment about your hands shaking. At a certain point in time, you're watching this guy win national championships, come back from injuries. You're watching Kyle build a family. Like you guys become friends. Talk about that friendship that develops over time, and that, I guess what we didn't speak to was the emotional roller coaster too. When while you're watching Kyle, you're emotionally involved now. It's like, here's a guy who, it's not just great wrestler. It's this is a man that I care about deeply, and vice versa, working both ways, and how that is for both of you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, starting off and feel like just getting to know Kyle, obviously from filming, but also just, I mean, we spend so much time together, right? So it's like, it's interesting. Like, I think I'm the only person from the outside or wherever, but like from beyond his team to continue to like not only film him, but capture everything and continue to move forward. And like one thing that I realized I forgot I wanted to say was like, when I was doing that initial interview in 2013 with him, I wrote all my interview questions down. And then when I would stop and look, and I would start to see like I was losing the connection. So after that, I never wrote a single question down ever. Like, it was all like, I would always go up and like just kind of have an idea of, I would just literally have a few images in my head of what I wanted to capture, because when I got there, it would be way different. So the more I planned, the more work I had to like kind of undo to redo. So it was a lot of just doing things organically. And that's why like I never used a light after that. I used all natural light because it was just way easier to do. But yeah, I mean, it was just really fascinating to watch him grow too. And I think the biggest thing that allowed me, or that I was so curious and that I enjoyed, was watching how he made decisions, you know. And I think that was one of the most important things that I really admired about him, was like how he just was so stringent on making these decisions and no outside things. Like, he just walked around with blinders on. And it was just really fascinating in a world where everything is so instant all the time and different things happen. Um, you know, how he just stayed focused on the prize.
And when you're a trailblazer, not to cut in there, but you guys take it from here. And when you're a trailblazer, when you're a guy who's trying unconventional methods, you're going to hear a lot of crap from a lot of people. There's always a lot of naysayers. Oh, this, that, and the other thing. So it's not easy.
No.
Yeah, definitely not easy. I think one of the interesting parts is just I know all of his ticks and he knows all my ticks. It's just like anytime there's an interview, now it's just become a joke, and we could probably put together like an hour long film for this. Is so what are we doing? And that's just like how Greg will start an interview every time. And
I never realized.
read it. But now when we film, I'm just like, so what are we doing? And it's just like constant over and over again.
It would,
And like Greg was saying, like, go ahead.
no,
And a big shout out to our sponsors, Eat Clean Bro and Champion Athletes. You need to eat like a champion to think like a champion. Mindset makes the difference.
there was so I wasn't able to go to Tokyo, right? So I gave a camera to Yanni.
Yeah.
So, and I was going through the footage, and Kyle was telling Yanni of how to film. And then he was like, okay, so we're over here, like, this is what we're doing. And then he's like, we're by the trees. And then Yanni pans, and Kyle's like, no, hey, look, this is what you do. You film me, and then you think about what I talked about later, and then you go get the B-roll. Okay. I was just like, oh my God, like Kyle's teaching him how to shoot stuff in a scene.
Well, I like have been learning through osmosis, really, like, some of Greg's techniques on like what to do, and I'll go on a shoot for, another sponsor or something, and like, all right, we gotta go here, we gotta do this. This is how we have to do it. Like, oh, you're way too close. Like, make sure you have, make sure you have no, it's good, it's good. I'm like, you are literally getting film here. Like, that's not good. We don't need that. But yeah, no, I think there was some just, and to Greg's point, like when I was cutting a lot of weight, and the 2 hour weigh-in, um it was, it was just something that he knew was going to happen. Like, I just was going from, you know, being super hydrated to like not, and just having to navigate that. And I noticed that too with my family, like I remember at the world or the Olympic team trials this year, um, like we were home, but I kicked my family out of the house. Like, all right, you guys got to go to an Airbnb. Like, I can't see you like under these conditions. This is like too much for me. And I need to do something that I wouldn't normally do, which is like, hey, you got to go. And I would go over to the Airbnb, but I can only stay there for like 10 minutes because I would just be like so overstimulated. And I'm so exhausted. I don't have enough energy to like deal with all these things. And Greg felt that, he felt me getting that way probably as much as anybody, because he was trying to be there for every one of my competitions, every one of my weight cuts. And it was just it was a really hard thing, and I had to lock in more than I would for pretty much anything else. Having to go through that, 6 weight classes is just, not enough. It really isn't. It's just too much for a lot of these guys, and it's just kind of crazy that we only have 6. It doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, I understand why they did it, not to get thrown out of the Olympics, but we're kind of just like, at this point, it's like, wow, like doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And how do you change it? Um, obviously the Olympics is the most important thing in wrestling right now, but if you ask an NBA player, like, is the Olympics the most important thing, or is winning an NBA championship the most important thing? It's like, well, winning an NBA championship. If you ask, I mean, even watching Full Swing on Netflix, Scotty Scheffler going to win the Olympic gold medal for Team USA, like that was like an amazing moment for him. But at the same time, he could go win one of the 4 majors, and it's just like just as exciting. And like that's just how wrestling is right now. And hopefully we can eventually build something that is kind of just puts the pressure and like growing the sport. Like everyone always talks about growing the sport. Well, what does that even mean? Like we are growing the sport. We have more athletes wrestling now than we ever had any other time. Maybe not at the D1 level, but at a youth level, we're growing faster than we ever had. Women's wrestling is growing faster than it's ever grown. We're in a really cool spot in terms of like, youth wrestling. We just need to continue on that path, but and just having a great NCAA tournament, and having all these different storylines and telling the stories. I mean, that's a huge point. It's like, how do we tell the story? Telling stories is how we get our name out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Telling the story and more Dake bombs for more people.
Yeah,
Can't just be one guy that's exploding these bombs. We need more Americans firing off Dake bombs.
that's right. That's right. So
Now, Greg, how nervous were you when Kyle would wrestle? Because you were privy to these intimate these moments of seeing his struggles and everything that he's going through. So, how nervous were you? Because a lot of times it's more nerve-wracking watching someone you care about than being out there yourself.
For sure.
Kyle, and then after that, I'd like Kyle for you to say how to talk about. I know these are long questions, but like, how did you feel that being videoed, being filmed, affect your behavior? Because there's that whole psychological thing that I think it's called the Forer effect. Like when you're being videoed, you might behave differently. I know you're a different kind of guy, so maybe it didn't affect you as much, but you're still human. So, Greg, how nervous did it make you? And then Kyle, how do you think it affected you?
It's interesting watching him from his weight cut to his training to all of that stuff. I really started to understand Kyle's like nuances of what he was working on, what he was gonna like kind of hit, like how he was gonna do it, like certain positions that he got in. Um, and when it was game time, I literally felt like I was going out in the mat. It was wild because I was walking out onto the floor. So it's like I was amped. I was like ready to go, but also I had a job to do, right? And my job was to make sure I capture and I constantly I had to remind myself of that all the time. It's like, get the best stuff. Like, make that stuff look so kick ass. Like, make it as best as you possibly can. And you only have one shot to get it. If you mess up the shot or it's out of focus, the majority of the film, I manually pulled focus on everything. Even when Kyle was wrestling, like when now all the cameras that they use, like the autofocus is insane, like the eye detector stuff. So having to pull focus and zoom and all of that stuff, the best way to make me not nervous was to really force myself to like
Task oriented.
yeah, yeah. But there was a few moments where like the way I would feel nervous is when like I got asked to like, oh no, you gotta move over here. Like you can't be here. You gotta slide over here. And as I'm settling down of the shot that I want, like I would realize I'm like, oh my God, like, I need to put my elbow on the top of the mat for a moment. Like, and there's so much, right? Like the coach is next to me here. So then they'd even be talking to me about stuff. Like I was just in it. But
And
it was
being a former wrestler, not to cut you up, but you being a former wrestler, you know what that feeling's like before you go out there. So it's like you're probably thinking like, if Burrow's coach gets too close, like I'm gonna nudge this guy out of the way. You know what I mean? Like you get those feelings. It gets intense.
I'd always be with like Rob or Cody or it's like So I was always like next to them, and they were always amazing. Like they would move over. Like I just was able to get whatever I was able to get, and like it always worked out in the end, which was nice. But yeah, I would be exhausted after the day. I would go home and like it just felt like obviously like not like I wrestled a match, but it's just um mentally draining, because I'm like I just you're filming all day and then you have to then take that 6 minutes or, in reality, it's like 15 they're on the mat for. By the time they walk out there between the periods, things are going. If there's a challenge, like they're not on the mat for 6 minutes, they're on the mat for like 12 to 15 minutes. So, making sure I capture all that, make sure I don't run out of memory cards or my battery's dead. Like that's things that I've like been really that I almost has happened before. There was one time I was working with, I was filming in France, and I was asked to Kyle knows this one. And, oh man, I'm so upset to this day. And, they asked like, "Hey, could you film Yanni and could you film Vito?" So I was like, "Yeah, of course, like no problem." So I was filming both of their matches, and then unbeknownst to me, I was burning through memory cards because I would only just film Kyle. Didn't matter. It's fine. I just was in the stands and I was uploading the stuff, and I didn't realize Kyle was up. And you hear, "Oh," and Gwiz like elbows me. He's like, "Dude, did you see that? Like Kyle just threw him on his head." And I was like, What?" And like I'm like, I had like an outer body experience. I'm like, Kyle's there, like I'm here, like how I came to France, like I did the one thing, and it was just, yeah, it was not.
It was a sweet throw too. There was like a picture of me hitting a rock bottom basically. Like I picked the guy up and then I turned and I just slammed him. I was just like, wham! That was cool.
Yeah. So just being able
God,
to
it's such a sweet shot though if you were there. Greg, could you imagine?
I
Yeah, it'd
couldn't
probably be like the showcase of the film, probably.
I know. I
You
know.
just blew it.
It was just so it's managing all these different things too, right? Like not just filming, but organizing footage, putting it all together, understanding what you need to use, what don't you need to use, the B-roll, the drone footage, the interviews, like to tie it all together. It's just like so in reality, when you go film that 15 minutes or 6 minutes, it's really it's a small amount. Obviously, it counts, but it's everything else that leads up to all that is just as important too. So
Yeah, I think a piece of it too, like we were talking about, kind of being a part of the family, like, family members fight, it's just like Greg would get on my nerves sometimes so bad, and I would just like, it would be captured on film. Like I would just like have to like swallow it. And it was just like you were saying, like if you get filmed, are you acting differently? And there's times when I would try to act differently, but then it would just like bubble up because I'd be so tired. I'm like, Greg, get out of my face. Like I am going to just throw you off this balcony right now. Like get away from me. And eventually he figured, he started learning. He's like, okay, like I kind of got it now. Um, but yeah, so and also, having someone film you for 12 years is like, um, it just becomes a part of who you are, you just kind of get used to it. Now every kid has a camera in front of their face but they're trying to add filters and they have scripts of what they're saying and like some of that just is not like that organic um capturing of someone's reality. And I try not to be the one that's just like fake out there. There's some things that I do have to hold back and there's some things that I didn't share. Um uh but at the same time I shared nearly like almost everything. Eventually you share everything. But it's just about like the timing of it, in the moment or whatever. Um but yeah, like having someone video you, like I notice it. I actually notice it with my kids more than anything. Like if I'm with my kids and I'm just like having a bad day and they do something that is pretty harmless, and then all of a sudden I just get like really upset and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like we don't do that in this family. Like stop it. And then I instantly, and, then someone FaceTimes me. It's and my little niece or nephew, and I'm like, oh, hey, buddy, how's it going? And I completely switched. I'm like, like that's not very authentic. I mean, like you kind of gotta understand that about yourself, and like, and it kind of just goes to show you. I think I was reading something about that, but like how quickly you can like get yourself out of a hole essentially just by changing your environment. So if you change your environment, whether it be someone calling on the phone or whether you step outside. So a lot of times now something's happening, the kids are going nuts. It's like, all right, well, we're going outside now. Like, get outside. Or, we're going downstairs. Like, just change the room, just change the scenery really quick. And whether that's, even in wrestling, like, all right, well, you're having a hard time right now, let's go in the weight room, or let's go in the, jump on the cardio equipment, or, let's just go get a drink, like something like that. Like, just go get a drink, and you don't want to stress your guys out, like you and me too. Like, I don't want to just be out there spiraling downward. Like, sometimes you got to learn to put the brakes on and be able to pull yourself out of that. And, I feel like Greg probably captured a lot of those moments and when he was videoing me. And I think it's definitely shaped how I do things. Just even when the camera's off now, it's just like, all right, just be authentic, do your best to be authentic. And you're never going to be perfect. We never are, never will be. So yeah, it's just something that you kind of get used to after 12 years of filming.
Awesome, guys. This is great stuff. Really appreciate all of us talking about this, all of your time. Anything else that we missed or anything else you guys wanted to get on the record? And of course, if you guys ever think of anything in the future, just let me know. I could always throw it in the show notes. That's no problem. Anything else?
Yeah, we're going live with our Indiegogo campaign on March 31st. And we are looking to just finally cross the finish line with the film with funding. So if anybody's able to help out, we would greatly appreciate it. We have multiple tiers that you guys could donate to. If you can't, no problem. Would love you to just share it on your socials. We really want to get this film out there. I'm just super excited. And I am really, really grateful, of how all of this went down. And I cannot wait to share this with the wrestling world.
Yeah, it's going to be epic. Really excited about it.
Awesome, guys. Well, keep up the great work. And do we send them anywhere in particular?
Yes. So I'm going to be posting on our socials on Kyle and I will be posting on the 31st of March, the link of where you need to go to. So that will be live on March 31st. Just click the link and it'll all be there. And we're going to be releasing the trailer as well, too. So it's the official trailer to the film will be released. And we'll be curious to see what you guys think.
Yeah, we'll get that link for you. Probably, do we want to like a pre-link or something in the show notes or add it on Monday or something like that?
I can give you a link that will turn live on Monday.
Cool.
So
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, the Dake documentary. Anyone who's got half a brain, you want to make sure you're tuning into this because, as we always say, whether it's wrestling, school, business, or life, it's your mindset that makes the difference. Kyle has it, and Greg filmed it. Thanks a lot, guys.